So in part 1 of this series, we've gone over all the basic information and the main purpose of the startup visa in Japan. And so today in part 2, we'll actually be going fully into the entire application process so that eventually you can also come to Japan and create your own business from scratch. So if you haven't yet watched part 1, I strongly recommend you go and do so before we continue, so that you don't miss out on any important details or information, and also so that you have a clear idea of what you're getting yourself into. Because today we'll be talking about understanding exactly what you need to have in order to maximize your chances of success when it comes to getting your own startup visa. Because remember, like I've said before, here in Japan, one of the most important things is actually presenting things the right way, giving the correct impression. It's basically the basis for all interpersonal relations in the country. So even if you have the best business idea in the world, it's not going to be worth anything if you're not able to package it and present it in the right way. And that's exactly what we'll be covering in today's video, so make sure you stick around until the end so that you can use this knowledge in your favor. Now, one of the first things you need to understand when it comes to applying successfully for your startup visa is that, yes, there's a lot of criteria and requirements that you have to keep in mind, but one of them is actually being able to create a concrete business plan. And I'll be explaining to you exactly how you can go about doing that later in this video as well, so pay close attention. Now, having said that, there's a very important thing you need to know, and that's the fact that applying for a startup visa is not going to be as simple as just filling in a bunch of application forms and then handing them into some office in your country. Because remember, this is actually a legal document that's going to allow you to come into Japan and create your own business from zero, from the ground up, from within the country. So you're actually not going to be doing this by yourself, because you'll actually have to engage and collaborate with the local authorities and the local governments of whichever city, area or prefecture you're applying for. And while generally there are two ways of doing this, one way is going to be a lot easier than the other. On the one hand, if you already happen to be a resident of Japan, for example, if you have a student visa, a work visa, or a family visa of any kind, think for example a spouse visa, then things are going to be a lot easier for you because likely you're already living in the country, so you can just go ahead and contact the authorities directly. However, on the other hand, if you happen to be an international entrepreneur who plans to apply for the startup visa from overseas, then things get a little bit more complex. Because of course, reaching out by post or by email or even by phone is going to be a lot more time consuming on your part. And on top of that, eventually you're also going to have to set up some Zoom meetings in order to discuss everything in detail and make sure that everyone is on the same page. And with that, of course, comes the time differences, the language barriers, and a few other obstacles that I'll be talking about later in this video as well. So just keep these things in mind before you actually apply for your visa. Now, as we get into the actual application process, these are basically the documents you're going to need. First of all, you're going to have to hand in your resume or your CV or curriculum vitae or however they call it where you come from. But this is basically a document detailing your entire professional experience. On top of that, of course, you're going to need your valid passport and to fill in a form called a new business implementation confirmation and a new business implementation plan. I'll be getting into this in the second part of this video as well. And then as well, you're going to need any proof of accommodation in Japan, as well as your latest bank statements. Now, these are generally the most basic documents they're going to be asking for, but keep in mind that this can actually change depending on which city you're applying for. And so now for the next section in this video, the actual application process, we'll be dividing it into 7 easy steps that you can actually follow. But before we move on, let me say once again that I'm in no way affiliated with the startup program in Japan, and I just like sharing important and useful information with people who might find it helpful. And so if that's you, I really appreciate the support, so be sure to give this video a like and share it with anyone you can. Now, let's move on to the application process. So the very first step in your application process is actually going to be choosing the right area for you. Remember that the startup program in Japan is actually offered in a few select cities and areas in the country. And each area comes with its own regulations, rules, and support systems. So choosing the right region for you is going to be crucial and critical because it's going to influence the entire application process, as well as all the requirements and the support systems you're going to be able to get. Also, like I mentioned in part 1 in this series, remember that in 2025, the startup visa is undergoing some very important changes, namely the fact that from this year, the startup program is going to become a national initiative, meaning that once it's fully implemented, you'll basically be able to apply for your startup visa anywhere in the country. But as of the time of this recording, this is not yet fully implemented. So I'll leave you right here with a full list of all the cities to which you can currently apply for your startup visa. And if you'd like to learn more about the specific requirements of each area, I'll leave a few links in the description as well. Now for step number 2, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you're going to have to be able to create and design your own comprehensive business plan. And this is likely going to be the most crucial step in the entire application process, because basically the success of your application and of your entire business hangs on this very point. Also, keep in mind that eventually you'll have to translate your entire business plan into Japanese as well. But in any case, today I'd like to go over how exactly you can go about creating an ideal business plan for your visa application. And to put it simply, the first thing you need to do is create an executive summary. And in it, you have to clearly articulate the entire concept and objectives of your business. What kind of business is it? What kind of services you offer? And who is your ideal customer? After that, of course, you have to provide some market research. You have to give an in-depth analysis of your target market, including the competition and the ideal demographics. Think, is there actually anyone in this place who needs the kind of business that you want to create? And if so, is there any competition in your area? And what kind of customer is it targeted at? Is it targeted towards young adults or office employees or single mothers or whatever it is? You have to be as clear as possible. Now, next you have to provide your business strategy. And here you have to outline your entire operational plan. And this includes what you plan to do about your marketing. Are you going to do mainly social media marketing? Are you going to start spreading flyers all around the city? And the same thing applies for your sales and for your strategies when it comes to product or service development. And once again, you have to be as clear and precise as you can. The next point is going to be all your financial projections, and here you have to be able to present a financial forecast for your business in the short, medium and long term as well. And this includes all funding sources, all revenue models, as well as all expense breakdowns. Basically, what are you doing with all the money that's coming into your business and what are you doing with all the money that's going out of your business? After that, you also need to describe your personnel plan. What are your actual staffing requirements? Do you plan on hiring locally? Are you going to bring employees from abroad? And if so, what kind of employees do you need? Do you need administrators, accountants, depending on the type of business you have? For example, if you're opening a school, do you need to hire teachers? Do you need to hire cleaning staff? All these things. And once again, the clearer and more specific you are, the better your chances are going to be. And lastly, I think it's always a good idea to set milestones and timelines for your business. You have to set some clear goals and strategies in order to show the authorities the projected path that you have for your business into the future. But let me be clear, please set realistic goals. I've seen time and time again people getting rejected because they end up setting unrealistic goals for their business of becoming a multi-million-dollar company in the first year. And of course, no one can take them seriously and they end up being completely rejected. So don't make that mistake, especially if you're a beginner, and set realistic goals for your business. So if you can set all this in a clear and concise manner, you'll have a pretty solid business plan for your visa application. So we can go ahead and move on to step 3. And in step 3, you'll actually have to go and get the help of the local government. And it all starts with a letter of recommendation from the area that you're actually applying for. And this step is going to include actually submitting all the documents from step 1 as well as the business plan from step 2. And after that, the authorities are going to study your application to ensure that it aligns with the economic goals of the area. This means that from the beginning, you have to ensure that your business and the area you're applying for are actually aligned, meaning that you shouldn't just go off to an area that focuses primarily on farming and try to create an IT business, because you're likely going to get rejected. And after that, you likely have a few meetings, probably online if you're abroad, just to go over any details, clarifying questions, and make sure that everyone is on the same page. And if everything goes well, you'll be able to get your recommendation letter from the specific city you're applying for. Now, once you've done all this, in step 4, you actually have to compile all your documents and submit them to the Immigration Bureau in Japan. Because now, with the help of the local government, you have to tackle the actual immigration process. And this is going to require a few documents as well. First of all, you have to bring in your recommendation letter from the government and fill in a form for a certificate of eligibility. Now, I've talked about the certificate of eligibility extensively in the past, and so if you'd like to learn more, make sure you go watch this video right here as well. I'll leave the link in the description too. After that, you'll need to submit your business plan, ideally translated into Japanese, as well as your financial proof. This can be any bank statements, any investment documents, as well as any financial guarantees. And depending on your situation, these documents might also need to be translated into Japanese. After that, of course, you need your personal documents, your valid passport, your recent photograph, as well as your proof of accommodation in Japan. And if you have everything in order, once you submit it, we move on to step 5. Now, step 5, my favorite step, you just have to sit and wait. Now we're waiting for the certificate of eligibility to actually arrive, and this can take anywhere from 1 month to 3 months, or sometimes even more. And so this step is likely going to be full of uncertainty and self-doubt, because you're actually likely never going to receive any updates from the government. You're not going to receive any information from the Immigration Bureau telling you that your certificate is on the way or anything like that. But you can be sure that the gears are grinding behind the scenes. Things just take a bit of time. But if you want my personal advice, you can still use your time productively during this period, continuing to refine your business model, doing market research while you wait for the documents to arrive. So the certificate of eligibility actually shows the government that you qualify to be able to apply for a visa, and that's exactly what you're going to do. You're finally going to apply for your startup visa in your Japanese embassy or consulate. And this means you'll have to prepare all the documents we've compiled so far, including a visa application form, as well as your certificate of eligibility, and likely many more documents depending on the embassy in your country. And of course, you'll likely also have to pay some fees involving your application. Now, this can vary greatly, but I've had some acquaintances who've gone through the entire process, and including the translation fees, the accounting fees, the lawyer fees, and basically every other fee going from zero to actually having your visa, the whole amount spent was around 4K USD, just to give you an idea. But keep in mind, this can vary greatly, so please take it with a grain of salt. And now the next thing is just waiting for your visa to be issued, and once that's done, we move on to step 7. And in step 7, you actually have to go to Japan and comply with the final regulations. So once you're in Japan, there's a few immediate actions that you need to take. And the first of which is actually going to the town office or the city office or the ward office and registering your address. You have to go to the offices and registering your name and your address so that you can finally be in the files. After that, you need to get your residence card or your My Number card in Japan. My Number is basically the equivalent of a social security number, and it's going to be the card that will allow you to basically do anything in the country, including opening a bank account, getting a phone number, and basically signing any contracts regarding your living spaces or your office spaces. After that, you'll actually have to secure the premises of your business. You actually have to go out there and get a place so that you can start working on your business. And ultimately, you have to set up a bank account. Now, of course, you don't have to do all of them in this order, but you do have to do all of them. So go ahead and create your bank account. Now, if you're a complete beginner or a complete foreigner, you'll find that some banks have certain hurdles that they want you to go over before you can actually open a bank account with them. So my suggestion would be trying first with banks like Rakuten or even the Post Bank, which are a lot more lenient. You can do everything 100% online, and so it's a lot easier to open an account with them. So try that, and once you've done all these things, you'll be set to start working on your business. And so there you have it. These are all the basic steps for you to be able to successfully apply for the startup visa. But with that come a few benefits and challenges that you need to keep in mind when you apply. And we'll be talking all about that in our next video in this series, so don't miss it, and I'll see you over there.